How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. OG Anunoby went off for 40 tonight against the Nuggets, and I swear I was planning to do this video earlier on just the awesome season that OG Anunoby's been having. Like, look, I literally wrote about this today for Sportscasting, one of the websites I write for. 10 hours ago. This was earlier before the Knicks game. If you'd like to read more about the Knicks offense and how it works, I broke some of that down. But we're going to talk more about OG and cover a lot of that stuff in this video. He is having the best offensive season of his career on this incredible Knicks offense that's like a top 3 unit in the league, and a lot of it is because of his role in this offense as like a closeout attacker. This is maybe the simplest role of OG's life on offense, and he is thriving. He is one of the best closeout attackers in the league because of his speed and his his strength and his quickness. Like, so quick, getting downhill, explodes through Michael Porter Jr., finishes. He's shooting great at the rim this year. Just an absolute tank. And if you enjoy this kind of content, consider subscribing, liking, commenting, all that good stuff. And that's a beautiful little step back mid-range right there. OG is a great mid-range shooter too. The Knicks are the best mid-range shooting team in the league. I think they're shooting 50% from mid-range, at least before this Nuggets game. It might be higher now, like a huge frequency. And the pump fake is legit, right? Because OG is a shooter, as we'll get into. Great little herky-jerky step back here. Because of how much power he can put in these steps right here, like, he is so forceful, lunging forward. Strother is in the way, but we're trying to kind of get, like, he's just so powerful, breaking on that front foot, stopping on a dime, and a great defender in Peyton Watson cannot get back and stop him right there. And Cat is playing some of the best ball of his life. Brunson is awesome, and having these guys to attack off of is just too easy for Anunoby, who has struggled in the past in more creation-focused roles, but play like this. Ball swings to him, pump fake, Martin bites on the pump fake. 3 guys. Look at all the attention that OG himself is able to draw. Lowry is going to slide down into this gap. PG is going to slide, and Drummond is going to come help. That's 3 bodies, but none of them can do anything against the strength and the power of Anunoby, who is really just a physical specimen. Like, one of the most impressive athletic talents in the league, and this 1-2 throws off Taurean Prince. Oh my goodness. His strength, man, in that upper body, just boom. I think part of what makes him so strong too is something you talked about a lot on the channel is his leverage. Look how low OG Anunoby gets right here. He's almost torso almost parallel to the court right here. And Prince is really upright, which means he can just drive right through him. Pushes him back, and oh my goodness, that is a mean, vicious type of slam by Anunoby. A lot of his plays look like that, and he's not perfect, but the handle, I think this season it's been maybe a little better. He's not as amazing finishing with his left hand, as you can kind of see on this miss right here, but he does a good job like sizing up Sarr right here, kind of like faking into his shot almost, like with his right hand right here on the ball, and then is able to get by with the basic crossover. Like, again, not a crazy advanced dribbler. I don't know if OG is ever going to be that kind of guy, but he is a very, very good, just like a very damn good attacker when he can just take 2 dribbles and, catch the ball, dunk it in space against a not so great defense. So the closeout attacking. And the other aspect of his offense that I love so much is how good he is in early offense. The Knicks do not run a lot. They're not a high volume transition team, but they're very efficient when they do. And part of that, the Knicks are amazing at getting switches in the half court regardless because of how hard it is just to guard Brunson and Towns. But OG loves to sprint the floor in early offense, seal against a mismatch, in this case Cam Thomas, where OG's defender would probably be Ben or Cam Johnson right here. But he's just going to go to work on early offense, drop step, dunk on Cam Thomas. And if we look at OG's shot profile, so many of his shots are assisted this year. Where is it again? Oh, I didn't mean to click on Mitchell Robinson there. Get well soon, Mitch. 100% of his threes, 86.8% overall, 80% at the rim, 76.5% assisted. All career highs in assisted marks. And highest scoring per 75 of his career, highest true shooting of his career, highest offensive EPM of his career, and 70.1% of the rim, 40% from mid-range, 42.2% from 3. He is absolutely smoking from everywhere. And we can just see the steady incline here over the last couple seasons and just where he's getting his shots. Like, he, unlike the Knicks are taking a ton of mid-range jumpers, as we can look right here. Shot distribution, mid-range, the Knicks are 27th in terms of, I guess, oh my God, the Kings taking 35%. 28.1% of their shots in the mid-range, but Anunoby is not really contributing to this as much, right? It's all basically restricted area, and it's the three. So, and a lot of those paint touches are coming early in the offense, where, again, we see OG switched on to Sam Merrill, and he's so good at, like, swimming around, getting position, and just going against the switch. And it's kind of hard to help off of guys because of all the threats the Knicks have on offense. Their defense has not been wonderful to start the year, but they've got some guys who can score and just makes light work of Tyrese Halliburton there in early offense. It's really hard for teams to deal with Anunoby in these early offense situations. Again, in this game against Cam Thomas, where I think this might have been was this after a made bucket? I think this was after a made basket. Yeah, this is after a made basket. Anunoby just sprints to the front of the rim, seals the defender off, and finishes. Like, this stuff is, it's nothing crazy, but it is a very effective and efficient source of offense, especially when you have a guy like Anunoby who is that level of scorer. And of course, when he has these size mismatches, like Malik Beasley is no match physically for Anunoby. He can use his little Dirk leg. Whew, beautiful step back fadeaway jumper there. As we showed before, pretty efficient mid-range shooter, not like his specialty necessarily. And then from this Nuggets game from tonight, isolating against Jamal Murray. But the reason that he was able to get this mismatch in the first place, and of course that's a mismatch, is because of the work OG did sealing in early offense. And credit the Knicks ball handlers for finding him. A lot of players in transition, right, they'll just space to the floor, but OG knows that he can get easy buckets by sealing off and not letting the defense switch the defender. Like, they probably want Peyton Watson guarding Anunoby, but they couldn't do that because Watson was still running back into the play. Anunoby himself is a pretty good screener as well. It's always good to force non-bigs into the screening action, right? Like, Trey Alexander is guarding OG Anunoby. And because these are two like-sized defenders, they want to switch, right? To have Westbrook stay on Anunoby and to have Alexander go to Brunson. But that lets Anunoby slip to the rim kind of in between these guys. And that's exactly what happens. Westbrook kind of falls asleep, as he does sometimes, and Anunoby able to finish strong there through Jokic. And here's OG acting as a pick and popper, and that's just way too much space, where OG sets the screen for Brunson on this empty side. And that gives Anunoby all of this space to work with because all three of the other Knicks are spaced on the other side of the floor. So this side of the floor is very clogged, but Anunoby has all this room to drive into. And the Knicks are going to correctly trust that, Zach LaVine and Kobe White aren't going to be in help position to take away Anunoby's drive. And they were correct in that assumption, right? Anunoby is a very good screener with Towns too. I love inverted ball screens just in general when you have your center setting the pick and roll, because it just creates so much chaos and havoc. Like, especially against lineups like this where I guess the Pistons are playing like Tobias at the 5. I don't really know. But because, once again, two like-sized defenders, they want to switch this to have Cade take OG and have Tobias, or just to switch to not give up the advantage. But look at all this space in the paint that OG can just drift into, and Cat is a phenomenal passer. Towns' most frequent assist target, I believe, is Anunoby this year. He's been just an absolute godsend, but he is a limited creator for a reason. Anunoby sometimes has one mode that's power, and when it doesn't work against great defenders like Evan Mobley, who understand how to use leverage and their body to position, it's not always perfect. It's like isolating against Walker Kessler. He's not necessarily a guy who you trust to like cook switches off of the dribble or create offense consistently without a screen. Like, just doesn't necessarily have the handle to create separation. And when defenders like Kessler knows that he's going to try to drive into his chest, he can just kind of hop backwards, use his size to contest, and force OG to take a difficult shot. And of course, Cat cleans that one up. Cat has just been unbelievable on the offensive end this year. This time, Anunoby gets a little dribble handoff and just his decisions aren't always the best on these drives, where he probably just like shouldn't have tossed this shot up to the sky. It ends up not mattering, right? Again, because Cat gets the ball and then the offensive rebound, but you know, not a perfect creator and can sometimes drive himself into tougher situations. But there's a reason OG, you know, he's in the role he's in because he doesn't have to create very often. He doesn't have to do all this kind of stuff. And he's like definitely not a high volume passer, but I do think a good amount of his turnovers are like losing his handle, but also trying to fit passes into windows. I think he's trying to hit Karl Anthony Towns through this tiny gap. It probably would have been better if Anunoby just like made that pass right about here, but he tries to Euro in, ball gets deflected. Just these like little ball control things when it comes to, you know, carrying a lot of possessions. Those things are important. Luckily, again, the Knicks don't need OG to do that. That's not his role. That's not what they ask him to do. And of course, this all levels out because OG is a ridiculous spot-up shooter. Like we saw earlier, 42.2% from three. He's been a ridiculous shooter throughout his career. 42. This is his best year, but above 37, 38, like every year basically, except his second year in Toronto. Like just a very consistently high-level spot-up shooter. And he's been... I think he's been sprinkling a little bit more into his shooting game. Like the Knicks will run baseline out of bounds plays to get him sprinting into corner threes, and these are pretty open, but he wasn't always shooting like light movement threes like this. And this is something that the Knicks have added and something that Anunoby seems to have added, which just, you know, goes to increase his offensive versatility, right? It's nice to see him sprinkling in these kind of different ways that the Knicks can unlock him as an off-ball scorer. But it's just really difficult because Jalen Brunson, who's having a fantastic season as a playmaker as well, so good getting downhill, and you want to sink and help onto Brunson, and especially when Brunson's driving to the corner, right? You have Jamal Murray helping, and Westbrook's going to shade to the corner because that's the more likely passing angle. But of course, because Brunson's a great player, he's going to no-look. Oh my goodness, Jalen Brunson. No-looking to Anunoby right there, who cashes the three. Shout out Brunson, who's having quite the season as a playmaker. Even if his scoring numbers are a little bit down, I don't particularly care much about that. Anunoby's so good playing off of this Knicks offense. And he's, can do a little bit of stuff off the dribble. It's nothing crazy. But once again, want to look at how we got here. We started with Hart and Bridges. And they're going to try to, It looks like they're setting up into a dribble handoff right here where Towns is just going to flip the ball to Anunoby. He's going to come around, but Towns fakes it and drives downhill. That sends the defense scrambling, and from there it's just, drive, kick, play off the catch, and Anunoby is the beneficiary at the end because he hits that beautiful little step back triple. He's got this one dribble step back, and it does really kind of go with his closeout attacking stuff, where he doesn't always just have to drive straight or pull up into a mid-range. He can step back and hit threes off of the dribble, which is a really valuable thing, right? Just being comfortable relocating, stepping to the side, maintaining his high-value three-point shooting. And, if you leave him so wide open, he can dribble into a pull-up, like Royce O'Neal's just backing way off him, and Anunoby calmly sinks that shot in his face. He's never going to be a high-volume pull-up shooter, but it's something that he can do. And his spacing, which of course allows him to attack closeouts because he has the gravity, also enables really great cutting. And his feel for cutting and finding space is really, really impressive. He always just times these so perfectly. Look, right when his defender Finney Smith comes to double Jalen Brunson, that's when Anunoby knows, okay, time to cut to the basket. Finish really strong, and he knows Cam Thomas is never going to be able to get over and fully stop an OG Anunoby cut, right? He's just not physically built to do that. And this is another part where his synergy with Towns is so impressive. Towns is an awesome passer to cutters. He's been playing out of his mind on the offensive end, and he's been so good at setting up these OG Anunoby plays. And another no-look by Jalen Brunson. The Knicks will have Anunoby, I think, purposely sink to the dunker spot, where maybe some conventional wisdom might say you have a shooting forward. Why not have him spacing the floor out here so Vucevic has to guard and space the floor? But the Knicks are not worried about Vuce as a help defender, presumably. He's just kind of sitting here on Brunson, and Anunoby's right at the basket now, so Brunson can just kind of lay it down right in there. So it's a different kind of spacing, right? It's really smart cutting, and it's intentional clogging of the lane, to me at least. And Anunoby's great in these kind of more schemed up actions. Classic, like, Warriors split cut here, where you have Towns in the post, and it's Bridges potentially coming off this screen, and Anunoby slipping to the rim as one of the options. Another great over-the-head pass by Towns to find him, and Anunoby dunks it home. He is a violent dunker, which I absolutely love. And Anunoby's a really good cutter after setting his own screens, as we see. And again, he's going to time this one up really well. Sees Cat in trouble, and he starts this one when Cats start looking, right? Like, he's like, oh shit, I know Cat's in trouble. I need to dive to the rim. I'm going to do that and get a wide open dunk. And again, because the Knicks have to allot their best defensive resources to Karl-Anthony Towns, Ben Simmons is guarding Towns, and the one pass away defender, Dorian Finney-Smith, who's probably the other best defender here in terms of help principles. So they have Cam, these guys are not help defenders, basically. And that allows Anunoby, even if Cam Thomas is, like, technically there, he's not doing much in terms of resistance, all things considered. And this is another just great example, one of Brunson being a phenomenal playmaker and driver and creator overall, but a great job of these three working in tandem. Brunson creates the advantage off of the dribble, and yes, the competition is horrible. I know. Russell Westbrook, very aggressive defender, knows that Cat's going to be open, so he darts out, but that leaves Anunoby free to slip into the baseline. These two defenders are going to be occupied to Brunson. Trey Alexander has to help in the lane, and Strother's way too far away to actually make an impact on this play. So Cat's presence, even when he's not touching the ball, as you can see, allows for OG to cut. And he's not much of a playmaker, really, never has been, but it's enough to where, like, he doesn't really turn the ball over very often. He doesn't make a ton of mistakes, and he can make basic passes off of his drives and his gravity. Like, he's good enough to read the help and make simple kickouts and swing passes and stuff. And OG's role is a scorer, as a play finisher, so you don't really need him to be doing all this passing stuff, but, like, he'll make good decisions. He's not so bad at forcing stuff. Like, he has the switch on to the driving against Finney-Smith, sees that Hart is open, kicks it out, Hart hits an open three. Very willing passer in these situations, even if he's not a super high volume passer. And of course he can do basic stuff like finding Towns, but OG, man, I know he hit 40 tonight. I really think he should be in consideration for an all-star slot. The East is weak, especially on the wings this year, and OG is, again, not going to have the scoring numbers necessarily, but he's still a near 20-point scorer on great efficiency, while still being one of the best defenders in the league. And the Knicks are an atrocious defensive team, and that is not because of Anunoby. He's been fantastic this year and can only do so much when Towns and Brunson and Bridges are all kind of harmful defenders at the moment. But Anunoby, man, is really hitting his stride as a perfect complementary scorer, and he really is probably more of like a quote-unquote star role player because he needs these advantages created for him. But man, OG attacking a tilted defense is one of the scariest sights in the league, and it's great that he has kind of embraced his secondary off-ball, early offense ceiling role over any, he's barely running pick and rolls anymore, which he used to do at a higher frequency. He's barely isolating, which he used to do at a higher frequency, and his evolution and his growth is really cool. And again, I think a big underrated reason to why the Knicks are such a dominant offense. Obviously, Brunson and Towns rightfully deserve much of the spotlight, but I don't think they'd be the same level of dominant without OG's presence as a secondary guy. So anyways, if you enjoyed this, consider subscribing, liking, commenting, all that good stuff.